families who are looking for answers to those questions you have about junior girls golf tonight. A very wide-ranging topic. Competitive junior girls golf really narrowed it down there. So we have some kind of broad strokes we'd like to talk about tonight, really focusing on scheduling and rankings and the player development process. Real excited to have Robert Linville here, a man of many talents. I guess we should say, he's the tour founder of this Peggy Kirk Bell. We wouldn't be here without Robert's vision from the beginning, but also accomplished coach and collegiate coach as well. So he brings a lot of different perspectives to the table and is such a great resource, not only for the tour, but for many of its players who train with him and through the process. So Robert, great to have you on tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mike. Excited to be involved, and we'll see how things go here.
Yeah,
Pop the questions.
There you go. All right. Well, I figured, one of the first things we did when we could have thought about this is I was talking to staff of, what are the 3 most common questions you get, whether you're at tournaments or on the phone. So that's kind of what led us to some of these topics that we came up with to try to answer pieces of those. So the first one starts with tournament scheduling. Get that a lot. What tournament should I be playing in? Why did I couldn't get in or did get into certain tournaments? What should I be looking for in the tournaments that I do decide to play in? So kind of the first place to start is kind of talking about what the different levels of tournaments that exist out there. Robert, you want to kind of start with just there from your perspective, from a coach's perspective, and you're looking at tournaments for your players. How do you kind of see the junior landscape as far as the different levels within junior tournament golf?
Maybe a little different than just how the levels are structured. More in each player, to me, has 3 levels. They're majors, the ones that are really important that they want to kind of be ready for. And then the really good tournaments they can get in that are helping prepare. And then some tournaments that you just need to learn, like playing competitive golf is different than just going out and playing. So I like players to play some tournaments, and all we're trying to do is get information. If you win, great. If you don't play well, great. We'll figure out what we need to work on. Because the feelings, the emotions, the thought process, everything's different in a tournament. And so you have to learn those things. Tiger's famous expression was, "I need more reps." And I think you can take it too far, for sure. We see some players just they'll play every tournament. And usually that's not a good thing. So it's a balancing of trying to find in the schedule, like how many tournaments is right for this person and what's important, like which tournaments are important and how are we gearing for those tournaments. So the majors for that particular player, a major for player A could be totally different than player B. And then what are the good tournaments like that everybody wants to get in? And then sometimes you're not going to get in those. So what are you going to do if that happens? And you're going to talk kind of about I think about how the priority goes and PKB and rankings and things like that. And then like I said, I just like to use some tournaments as we just need to play something. I need to find some information. I'm big on tracking and stats and things like that. And then sometimes you just need information so we can get some idea of what we need to go work on.
Yeah, so one of the pieces I kind of wanted to show here, and I'm going to share a screen here just so we can, Brandi, it's got me blocked out of sharing now. So, but one of the things kind of want to look at, is kind of how the progression through the PKB has from our regional program to the national program, and now to our invitationals and our national championship on the Golf Channel in November. We kind of have these different phases. I think, like you mentioned, each player, their major may be somewhere along that pathway. It's not everybody's major's that final step as we're kind of developing in those phases. And I think that's one of the things I really like now about how the tour has grown over these 15 years is the fact that the futures and the prep and now the bell, you have three really developed stops on that path as you kind of get to these high, to the elite level, if you do reach that elite level of competition that exists there at the end. But there's quality championship events along each pathway, so that you're able to have those developmental moments, because that's a lot of big part of it is, we always talk about sleeping on a lead, playing in a tournament, trying to win, and playing in a tournament just to play, and is a big difference. It doesn't matter at what skill level or what yardage you're playing at. One of the great things, that US Kids provided in the 12 and under environment was a place to play yardage appropriate golf from the beginning. Operation 36 on the developmental side. Those are two, great ways to start that process of focusing on not only development, but excellence along the way, versus just jumping into the deep end and hoping you can swim.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I tell players on every level, so it's not just it's not just like junior golfers, but it could be collegiate golfers, could be tour players, and obviously you want to win. I mean, you signed up for the tournament, you want to play well, and you want to win. But the way I look at it, and you can, it'll be some exceptions. The elite will be some exceptions. But what I look at, are you playing where you can be in contention 30 to 40% of the time, which means going into like this last day, whatever the last day is, are you within 3 or 4 or 5 shots of the lead? And if you play well, you've got a chance to make a run at the lead. So obviously a tour event, it's usually the 4th round. A big invitational could be the 3rd round, and a normal big tournament, it could be just, the second day, play good on first day. But usually a 2-day, do you have a chance, as they say at Augusta, do you have a chance on the back 9 on Sunday? But, so really I look at it like, can you get in contention 30 to 40% of the time? So let's say, we see it all the time. We'll take 2 extremes. One is it doesn't matter, futures prep, we'll go futures. They've won a couple of times and they're always at the top. Yeah, it's kind of time to move up, right? You've proven that this is not your challenge. I don't care what age you are, you've proven that. On the other hand, let's say you're prep and you think I need to be playing bell, but you really have never been in contention. I think it's important that you stay there and learn how to compete and get in contention, because that's a big deal. There's a huge misconception that college coaches only care about, in our PKB world, the bell division, and that's not true. They care about what scores you can shoot.
Right. Well, it's one of the slides that I kind of in preparation and looking at, one of my things that I've really been digging into the last couple of years has been understanding strength of fields throughout, not only within the PKB system, but outside as well, as far as how the ranking systems are evaluating tournaments and how we can use that data to then help our families understand the choices that they make, with whether it be a tournament within the PKB or outside, of understanding, how that compares. I think that's, like you mentioned, the prep series, the prep preview series at a national level, that those tournaments now are ranking stronger, than outside tournaments that you could go play. And, that's a big thing. If one thing I can educate families too is just, just because we have an event like this weekend, we had 145 players, I believe, register for this, try to apply to play this weekend at the Catherine Perry Hamski Tradition in Findlay. We only had 90 spots, so 42 Bell, 24 Prep Preview, 24 Futures National. So the competition for those spots was very heavy. So getting placed into the Prep Preview wasn't an indictment of your current status. It just means that that's how many good players wanted to play. And the fact is, as long as you surround yourself with players like you or better than you, in that environment, which is what our slotting system is doing, then there's a ton of value within that. Because even if you're, let's say, in the top 20% of your field, there's still players better than you in the field to beat. And if you beat all the players of your skill level, the system's going to recognize that, and you're going to get a big bump in the rankings because it's showing that you've outperformed all of these people in your zone. It's like, beating your contemporaries before the next step, like you were talking to earlier. So I have a lot of data, and I'm going to kind of show a little bit of that just so families can kind of understand a little bit of what's going on there.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things is that we don't want everybody calling you for sure, but you rank every girls tournament in the country. Like you go through and there's a metric that, we don't need to get into all of that, but you go through and you rank every tournament. So you know exactly how the field, like the projection of each field is going to rank. And one of the things that we really take pride in course setup is based on historical data. We know that this field is on normal conditions should shoot about these scores. They're going to be within this range. And if we miss, we can make an adjustment. But I think that's important. The analytics that you understand and have on the ranking side and how each tournament exists. And, and then there's, for our PKB players, there's also benefits. Sometimes go play against some people you don't know or go to another region and play. But for overall, we're going to provide huge value and where we're trying to find players and move players and help them with their scheduling.
And you touched on a point there that I got kind of on my radar, something that we do internally, but came up. There was a tournament a couple weeks back where the wind was up heavy and the scores in an elite field, the Junior Heritage, that the scores shot up because of the conditions of the day. And the question was relating to the USGA's adjustment that's being done now daily, which doesn't apply to tournament golf because we're not entering rounds each time. But as you just noted, one of the key things that we're doing on the back end when we're looking at tournaments is we enter that tournament understanding that what each division's expected score is. We're able to pull data not only from all of our PKB events, but we're able to pull all the data from the Junior Golf Scoreboard. So with all that data, we have all the scoring differentials of all the players involved. So we're entering that tournament understanding what the expected score is. So in our method, we are not, as a tour, as an operator of a tournament, we're not able to change the course rating to what we know maybe is actually happening, right? Take this weekend at Findlay. The course still has dormant grass. It's going to be wet because it's going to rain over ½ an inch tomorrow and then rain again a little bit Friday night. So we know we're going to have a wet course with dormant grass. The wind's supposed to pick up on Sunday. These are all variables we're already thinking about as we look at how we're going to set that golf course up. Whether that means we have to move a couple tee boxes forward to make holes that we think are going to play into the wind, play fair. Because again, we're not going to be able to say the rating of that day changed because the course variables were harder. What our method is and what we have at our disposal under the USGA guidelines is to set the golf course up to that rating. So that's where there's a little bit of art to it from our perspective, as far as experience that goes into that, about how you manipulate the setup of a day to make it play, fair? You know, that's a question.
Right.
But from a rankings perspective, that's really important because all of the players playing in these tournaments, whether you're playing with us or anywhere you play, you're being judged off that rating versus every other tournament that's being played. So, you know, the fairness in that, and again, we're going to talk about ratings a little bit here next of the why they have validity, but there's also so many holes within the calculations of them because there's variables that are just not controllable. Our players from the Northeast have a major thing against them because they're not able to get into fields, their strength of fields as much unless they're just really able to travel a ton. The conditions that we play in here in the Carolinas and the Middle Atlantic, we're not going to see green grass until April, whereas Florida right now is playing in good conditions. That's something that has to be balanced in the way the courses are set up. So I think that's one kind of like peek behind the scenes of what actually is happening as we're trying to prepare that course. And why when you show up someday, that tee, it says 335 on the scorecard, but that tee box may be moved, give or take 10, 15, 20 yards as we're trying to manipulate. I'm going to take this chance. First for everybody, again, thank you so much for being here. I think Brandi introduced me, but I'm Mike Parker. I'm the tour director here with PKB. And we do have, if you do have any questions as we're kind of going through these topics, please use the chat function here on Zoom. Brandi's going to kind of curate those and pop them in when we have it. So if you do hear something that you want to know more about, or you have a question or a clarification, please shoot a little chat notice there, and we'll try to pick it up as we're going through our topics. But I'm going to share, yeah, there we go. I've got a couple things I just want to show real quick, and these are specific to the PKB, and will give you an insight into a little bit to how we're structured, and again, talking about those rankings, the way that the tournaments weighted are. So right here is what the 22 schedule for the PKB looks like. So we've got about over 140 tournaments within our program this year, and they kind of move from different levels again. So we have our new national championship progression. That's a new addition to the tour this year, where we'll have a girls only national championship on the Golf Channel at the end of the year. So really a great opportunity for players to get some additional exposure and a really cool opportunity. So we not only do we have our local program, local qualifying for that, which is ongoing now. Then we have our regional series. We have 8 different regional series across the East Coast in Kentucky, which is about 61 events of the tour. Then our regional qualifiers, there's 14 girls only regionals that are going to be hosted this summer. These are the events that are going to allow you to qualify for that national championship. Then the core product right in the middle of right now is our national series. So these are those classic events that you see named classic. This is our Futures National Prep Preview and Bell National events. And then kind of our elite level events, our championships and invitationals. So these are our 2 and 3 day events that you're trying to qualify for. Everything you're seeing at the invitational and the championship level, and then some of the classic events as well, especially at the Bell National level, use our priority-based entry system. And we're going to touch on that next because I know a lot of people have questions about how that works and not. But why I think is really important. Why do we have priority-based entry? And the reason is at these elite level tournaments, we want to make sure that players who have developed and that are at that elite status are getting the competition and the strength of fields that they need to keep progressing as an elite level player, just as everybody along the step where you were are looking for that same opportunity. I always understand that I get parents call that, why didn't I get it or why didn't I want it? It's not that we don't want your child to be in that group, but just as you want to have the best environment for your child, we're also looking out for that family that has that player that already has progressed to that step, that we're making sure that they have the environment that's best for their child. So it's important that we have these different steps and we have these different divisions that create that environment. So everybody, no matter where you're at in this process, is getting the environment and the competitive stature, ranking, otherwise that you need. And that's what this kind of division of tournaments, whether it be by classification or by level, is providing. So. And then the next piece, and this chart is interesting. This kind of delves into strength of field that Robert was kind of noting before. Golf Week has a exclusive, what they call an elite ranking. So there's 235 tournaments that they've identified across the country as the top junior tournaments put on by the different tours or independent events that exist. So this stat is that link right there at the top. You can go look at it. It's posted on the internet, so you can go view it all. But this is the statistical analysis of those tournaments. And what you'll see as far as girls tournaments, we know that, the AJGA pulling across all of the nation, their invitationals, the US girls, the PGA girls, these are some of the, the best tournaments that are available to players that pull in a national field. What you're seeing, and this is what, really the growth of the PKB is now providing, is that our average strength of field now is unparalleled with any other tour in the country for girls. That includes, a lot of those independent events that exist, the different tiers of the different other tours, down here at the bottom, some of the national tours that, just do not have those strength of fields in the girls. Again, this is looking at our 16 top events that are currently in the system. Do get a lot of questions about the AJGA and their program. Obviously, they run 116 tournaments in the last 12 months, but there's different levels to them as well, just like we have the different tiers. You can see here when it's broken out by their different levels, whether you qualify, they're not all the same. They're each at a different tier in the process. So just because you got into an AJGA doesn't mean that the stature of that event may be the same as every other one. And that's important because, the choices you make, and going back to scheduling, whether it's traveling and the expense and the entry fee and all the things that go into it, there's a finite amount that is there. So the choices that you make, you want to make sure you're getting that value for that dollar. So this kind of just shows you the breakdowns of where it sits. And this is the last 12 months of data as far as tournament rankings. Robert, anything you want to add on either of those two pieces before we move on to a little bit into the rankings specific?
I think the value part, that's always like when I get the question, what tournament should I play in? It's always, for me, what's the value? And value can be, like I said earlier, like it could be, we're just playing in this tournament to get some information. It's a great tournament. You don't have to travel far. Here it is. Or it could be, we need to go play against the best field you can play against. And here's where you should play. And so value can change for each player during the year, but it also can change based on where you are in your development. So everything that I look at is like, what's the value of this tournament? And that's the whole, guiding force for me in helping players determine their schedule. So, I think it's a good look at the growth of the PKB to see that, if you merge all the AJGA, where scoring average, stroke average is exactly the same. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and so kind of looking at the rankings, I actually have a separate webinar that I do specific to rankings. It kind of takes a deeper dive in how all the systems make your ranking. How do you develop your ranking? How do you improve your ranking? Do the rankings even matter? We don't have nearly enough time to go through all of that. So I think as just a kind of a quick overview, at the core of every ranking system that exists, whether it's Junior Golf Scoreboard's national ranking, the PKB Performance Index, Golf Week, everything, at least 2/3 of that ranking is what you shoot. So your score minus the scoring differential of that, I mean, the scoring course rating of that particular round, otherwise known as scoring differential. It's why you don't see scoring average ever referenced in anything we do, because scoring average doesn't take into effect what yardage you played or the difficulty of the golf course. So scoring differential is always the number that is being evaluated from a rankings, and it's 2/3 of your rankings. So whether you play a ton or you play a normal amount or you play less, the quickest way to improve your ranking is play well. You cannot manipulate the system by playing more, because if you play more and play poorly, differentials, again, 2/3 of what you do. So if you're getting 1/3 because you're getting some more points or you're getting some more value because you played in some good fields, it's being offset 2/3 by what you shot. So you always have to play at or above your standard if you want to improve. Now, as you move up the ranking system, so as you get to a higher ranking, the margin that you need to improve your ranking becomes less. So the choices you make as far as where you play, the strength of the fields you're in, the distance and the difficulty of the course you play do start to become a little more of a factor, because the math is being, is tighter, and those things are going to be a bigger factor. So, I get that question a lot about, or about division moving up. Had a good conversation today about a player that was trying to kind of figure out where to move up. When was the right time? We're looking at where they kind of stand, what their grad year is. That's a big component, where you are in the process. If you're later in the process and a little behind, we got to push it a little bit more. If we're still in we're in middle school and we're already starting to make these progressions, that's great. I think one of the things, and this is an idea from the very beginning that Robert had, was let's not pigeonhole ourselves to age divisions. Let's give ourselves the ability of players to progress at the level that they're at, and use that as a tool to, one, keep more girls in the game longer, because they're always try to keep in an environment, a competitive environment that's right for where they are developmentally. And that's been a huge, I think, driver of the strength of this tour as it's grown over these years.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that the rankings, I saw a question just pop up, and I'm sure Brandi's going to get to them, but I had this on my notes anyhow, was, do coaches look at rankings? And the answer is not really. They may go look, but they're not like, well, this player's ranked 235th and this player's ranked 312th, so which player do I want? No, they don't really do that. So we're going to talk a little bit about the coaches part and what they're looking for and some things like that in a little bit, but the rankings do have a purpose, and there's flaws in every ranking system. We believe there's flaws in some more than others. But it is like we started this talking about early, like, where should you play? You should, you want to play where you can shoot some scores. I mean, that's the main thing the coach is going to look at. That's what gets them out there, other than they just want to be seen. You think you want to be seen, really, they want to be seen. So there's a lot that, that coach saw my child Birdie, number 14. They don't care. It just doesn't matter. But, so they're out there to see some players. They're out there to get some surprises, but really a lot of it, they want to be seen too. Like they want to be seen as somebody really cares and is trying to recruit. So it's a two-way street there, but they don't really look at rankings very much.
Yeah, and like Robert mentioned, zones is a big piece, and that, I think I can hook this into the priority-based entry, because I didn't really get too descriptive on that, but it's really zones. You know, like you said, 250 and 350 are the same ranking nationally. There's that disparity between those players. You couldn't tell if I put them out on a range or I put them on a golf course. It would be 50-50 on who wins that day. So it's really about getting moving into different zones within the rankings. You know, get inside the top 1,000, get inside the top 2,000, whatever those steps may be. You know, but 1,500 and 2,000 look a lot alike. You know, so there's not this just, you know, 5 spots, yes, I've accomplished something. You know, it's so much more broader than that. And that is, you know, one reason why the way in which we do our priority-based entry formula. So we have a mathematical formula that we use, that we pull in. Again, we're pulling in all of your data, not only your PKB data, your junior golf scoreboard data as well. So we get your ranking, we get your scoring differential on both systems. We then pull all that data, it runs a mathematical formula, and it ranks every player that is in that field, in that application list, 1 to whatever, how many it is. So it says, here's the expected finish on all the data we know about these players. Now, as Robert said, the systems have flaws. They only take, it's a 12-month snapshot, and you may have played the last 3 months amazingly well. You may have turned that corner and you still have 9 months before that weren't so hot. You know, it's not going to react to that. It's not, you know, so it is imperfect. And I agree with that. There's no perfect system, but it is a fair system that tries to look at the what your performance has been. You know, as I say, what has been earned. You've earned it by how you've played on the course, and that's giving you this opportunity to get into this field. If you want to get into the next field, then go out on, you know, and earn it, whether it be, again, on the PKB or on, you know, another tournament. That's why we use both systems, because we have a lot of players that play outside the PKB. That's great. You may have great local tournaments. You may travel to play events other places. You may not be in our service area. You know, we're pretty much an East Coast based organization still. So we want to give those players an equal and fair evaluation of where they fit compared to those PKB players. So the priority-based system is what's happening there. So when you're seeing the priority list come through, whether you get in or you get put on a wait list for a different division, that's what it's done. All the names are removed. It's nothing, there's no, you know, hidden agenda or anything else other than here's where the current analytics say this field should rank. And then we go play that week, and then we rerun it. Our index runs every night at midnight on Monday night. Junior Golf Scoreboard system updates twice a day. So we always pull the night before. So you're seeing this ever-changing piece that's done there.
Yeah, I think it's important also, Mike, about, I mean, really one of the missions for PKB is we just want to create opportunity. And if you go play somewhere else, that's great. You're playing. Go play. You know, again, what's the value of where you're going to play? But that's fantastic. Like, it's just about creating opportunity. You know, it's our little nonprofit foundation, and you're running an amazing thing, 140 some tournaments with about 5 people in that little building. And it's incredible what you're able to do, but it boils down to, you know, how can we create more opportunity?
All right. Well, before we transition into the player development and college side, I just saw a couple questions there on the side, and I'll hit them real quick. And you mentioned the one about the rankings. There was one about the State Golf Association juniors and USGA juniors. Yes, especially USGA girls and PGA girls. Those 2 national events, as you saw, those were some of the top 20 events in the country last year. So qualifying for those, one, the coaches all prioritize those events because it's in their summer season when they're not in season. So they're able to travel a little bit more recruiting wise. So big events to try to get into. Try to qualify for the US Open. Try to qualify for the USAM. And then, you know, the US girls and the PGA girls below that are great opportunities to get that additional value on both rankings and exposure. So there's there. A question about PBE from the AJGA. We have, I don't even know how many stars now. It's a lot. Our biggest events are 12 and 8s. Um, I can be honest to say I am not a politicking for it. As that chart showed, our events are worth just as much as those events. So if you're trying to play our events to play theirs, that's a choice you can make, but it's not necessary especially if you're here on the East Coast. So it's an opportunity. I love the fact that we have those stars for the players that want those opportunities, especially that want to go outside of region and to play or to get into those invitational level events. That's great. It's that progression that we want players to make. But I just hope people realize that it's not the end all, and it's the only path that is going to get you where you want to go. The math just doesn't support that. So let's the next kind of questions are really focusing more as we get to the recruiting piece. And I want to, before we get all the way into recruiting, because again, the next 2 webinars in this series are really going to start to focus all in the recruiting phase. So I want to take this opportunity when we have Robert and Brandi here to kind of talk a little bit about player development as well. Because I think ultimately, to get recruited, you have to get to an elite standard. That player has to develop into a player that the coach is going to want on their team. And I think in the process of competitive tournaments, that's what we provide here. It's understanding that process. So a couple questions that kind of came up, and Robert and Brandi, I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, is, as you're looking at what has made successful collegiate golfers, so players that you guys have helped in the recruiting process, you've seen them as junior players, what has ultimately been those main components, that those X factors, what is it that they have, the intangible pieces, besides being a good golfer, that led them to be successful collegiate golfers? Because we see so many, whether it's burnout or priorities change or whatever it may be, where just because you were an elite junior golfer doesn't mean you're going to be elite collegiate golfer. What would you guys say is the things that you've seen over your years of experience that they lead someone to that success?
I'll hop in.
There she is.
Yeah, I know. Well, I've had to stay muted. If y'all hadn't seen how many times I've probably coughed during this time, there's a reason I've been muted this whole time. But I actually do a spring kind of, I'll be getting ready to do this in a couple of weeks with all of my girls, a senior kind of series with the girls, trying to help them get ready for college. And a lot of their questions do come into the golf side of things, and I actually tell them that the more non-golf things that they can focus on to kind of prepare for ahead of time, how to manage things, how to do your laundry and cook and clean and do those things are actually some of the things that will help you be more prepared when you get to college and have that transition. Is everybody tries to think about like all this golf stuff, and a lot of that you've been doing for so long and you've done a pretty good job of it, that the one thing you got to think about is you're living away from your parents, and you're going to have to start doing these things on your own and getting yourself places. So actually sometimes thinking about that and already being responsible for some things that you're doing off the golf course and learning how to do some of these things, grocery shopping and, like I said, laundry, and how to eat a little bit better, because you're going to have a coach there and you're going to have somebody, really dictating a lot of what you do, but you've got a lot of time on your own that you're having to figure these things out. And some coaches aren't as strict. They're going to put a lot of stuff in your hands. So a lot of times that non-golf piece of those intangibles are just as important for that success when you get to college, because it's a big transition. It's a very tough adjustment. I'll let Robert touch a little bit more on the golf specific side of it from a player development piece. A lot of what I love is more of that personal development side of things, that maturity, independence, and that is a big piece of it for, having more of that, like I said, the non-golf responsibility and starting to take a little bit of that on before you get there. And because if all that's stressful and you're having a hard time with that, it's going to play a big factor into your golf game. And then that's going to be stressful, and you're just going to continue to feel like you don't have the time. You don't have, the ability to do everything you need to do. So that would be kind of my take on it, a little more from the personal development side of things. So I'll let Robert take his side on that player development piece.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, there's 5 pillars, I would say, to my coaching philosophy. And they don't have anything to do with skill development. Can you find joy in the journey? The journey is going to be really difficult. So you're going to have tough times. Can you find joy in that journey? Does your work match your goals? If you have big goals, you need to have big work, and the work needs to make sense. Do you measure and track, which I'm kind of big on? Do you measure, track, and do we know if you're improving and how you're improving? You got to learn to trust mainly yourself, but you got to learn to trust the people around you, your parents, your coaches. And it takes a while to build trust. Actually trust comes from vulnerability, not from certainty. That's from Josh Nichols' podcast. By the way, all of you should be listening to Josh. But it's so true. Like, the uncertainty is just being vulnerable. That provides a trust. And then you got to love to compete. So if you've got all of those, then when you go, like, where are you on the skills? What's a coach going to look for to in that process is score. That's the thing that's going to get them out there. Not the first thing that's going to get them out there is your score, not your GPA. Your GPA is probably second. But the first thing that's going to get them out there is your score. And then when they get there, they're going to look like, what's your skills look like? Technically, what do you look like? How do you play? And then for me, like, when I go to tournaments, I look at two different things, or two different perspectives, I guess. One is I'm trying to look at it from my players. Do I see things when I watch them play that I don't see when they're just in sessions with me? And then, I'm trying to evaluate that. And then the second is from a college coach perspective. So I put that hat on. What am I looking for? I'm looking to see how they handle adversity, what their skills actually look like compared to others. Like, how's that look like? Can you hit it far enough? Do you have height on can you get trajectory? Can you hit some shots around the greens? Those type of skills. But one of the big things actually I look for is when you make a mistake, is the first thing you do is, do you look at your parents? And parents, I'm looking at you too. When I used to go out recruiting, I'm watching the parents, because a coach is going to spend 4 years with this player, and they don't want 4 years of a lot of parent interference, I would say. So, those are the things I'm looking for, but score is going to be the first thing. They already know you can play. If a coach is coming out to watch you, now they'll get surprised. They may come out to watch player A, player B's in the group. They get surprised going, oh, I like that player. But they already know you can play. They've got paper. They've got the internet. They've seen scores. So that's the first thing. They're not looking to see if you birdied 7 and, actually, one of the things that's pretty intriguing, you'll hear a lot of coaches talk about it, is when you make a mistake, how did you handle it? More important than, did you make 3 birdies? It's like, what'd you do when you made a mistake? So those are the things I would say are the top things that, from a player perspective and a player-parent interaction perspective, that I think are important.
Right. And you talked a little bit about distance. We get this a lot, especially when I from our standpoint at the office, when people are looking at the classification choices, when it's time to move up. I do believe that 90% of our tour hits the ball really far. That's what I've heard. So everybody, every daughter hits the ball really far. So can you quantify what really far actually is in the collegiate game at the different levels within collegiate? What kind of yardages are players hitting drivers at and 5 irons at? It's not just the driver. It's how long can you, and like you said, the trajectory. Can you kind of help us quantify that to families so they kind of understand what that actually means?
Right. So I have certain metrics that for different levels, but my basic metric is, can you swing the driver 90 miles an hour and can you carry it 210, 215, 220 in that range? That would be a driver metric. Now you're getting where you can play pretty much anywhere if your scores are good enough, right? If the other parts of your game, if you swing 90 miles an hour and you want to play at, I don't know, is Wake ranked #1 right now? They might be. If you want to play at a program like that, right, we got a lot of great programs, but an elite level program, and you're swinging 90 miles an hour, you better be really good with short game, irons, putting, something. You got to shoot some scores. So something's also got to be, excellent. The high-end players would be swinging in the 100+ mile an hour. As far as high-end speed players, not necessarily high-end scores.
So I say I can swing
but
hard.
Speed, yeah, you can swing hard. Well, you used to. I don't know about your shoulders now, but anyway, different topic. But the high-end players are going to swing at a little over 100 miles an hour, and speed, and then 7-iron. I use driver 7-iron. So 7-iron. Can you get it 75 miles an hour plus, or can you carry it in the 145 upward range? The longest are going to be about 170 7-iron. And if you're below 145, you definitely can play collegiate golf. You just can't play at the high level, or you're just not long enough to play at the high level. If you can't carry it to probably 20, maybe 15, but if you can't carry it 220, and if you can't hit a 7-iron 145 carry, I don't care what your total yardage is, you probably can't play at the top end. But the top end is 20 schools out of, I don't know, 400. But that's what everybody's kind of looking at, right? I want to play at this level. So there's your top level. The average, is going to be, can you swing the driver in the upper 80s and low 90s? You're going to have to be there for most levels of collegiate golf. And then can you 7-iron, can you hit it at least, 140 yards carry? So I would say the average elite 7-iron is going about 155 to 60 average, probably.
And Brandi, I want to ask you a question kind of related to this, because Robert was just talking about, the different levels, there's of all these programs that exist, the Dukes, the Wakes, these top 20 programs, UVA, they've got a lot of great programs like Robert mentioned in our region. But the goals that players have, I know you're a big proponent of having a wide, 75 schools, start wide, and then that let that help you then start to narrow down as all the variables, whether it's size of school or your scores or where you're at in the process, start to narrow that down. But one of the questions I had was, how does what the player's skill is, so where they are in that progression, and how old they are, how does that determine what they do in the recruiting process, and how you would help different families depending on where they are with those variables?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something I get asked, and I am gonna, only because I was talking to the NC State assistant who's been a friend of mine. I was talking to her yesterday, and she's talking about how deep that top 20 range of being elite has now really become this like top 50, top 60. It's just getting, and then there's this little, that's almost become this elite, especially right now with a lot of these 5th-year seniors that that have all this extra experience. She just says it's unreal how strong that level is right now, and it's almost like a complete separation of them from your mid-ranked D1s and down. So I feel like they're talking about this elite level has actually really expanded into more of like that top 50, top 60. And that's usually what I consider. But again, there's different variables with that, but just to know just how deep that actually really goes for those programs. She just was talking about it yesterday. But the recruiting timing piece, it is, and I mean, one of the biggest things to kind of remind everybody is, the recruiting rules changed back in 2019 from all the years before that. So if you, anybody who's in college right now, for the most part, was all on a different timetable. And a lot of people are still in this mentality that we used to have of these 8th and 9th graders that could commit. But the process has changed now. The ability to communicate with coaches has been pushed back. So a lot of the start time has been adjusted. We're seeing it now with the 23 class. We didn't get to see it much with the 21s or the 22s, obviously mostly because of COVID and just the timing of things. But timing of the process is definitely a little bit more based on your resume than it is your age, and then it is kind of what you might be told, because it may be a really good 8th grader or 9th grader who's, I always like to use kind of that under 80 mark. I mean, it's a little vague, but if you're, 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, and you're pretty consistently shooting under 80, and you're able to even get it down to around mid 70s or under, I mean, you're on a pretty good track at that point to probably play a higher D1 level. And it's the higher D1 coaches that are going to start the process early. They're the ones that come that June 15th coming out of your sophomore year that are going to want to, that are going to be quick to contact players, and the process is going to happen a little bit earlier and a little bit shorter. So by 8th, 9th grade, I mean, you really do have to be to a certain point. And right now, I mean, it's, again, for that level, it's, if you're not pretty consistently, lower 70s, even by that point, I mean, it's tough to get there in the time that it takes, because coaches need to watch you play. They're usually going to watch you play over the course of sometimes 2 summers if they can. So again, in terms of the timing, a lot of it is really on that score range of being pretty consistently in the 70s as an 8th and 9th grader, and needing to start to just let coaches know who you are and get your resume out to them and just start to initiate some things. And, I've kind of brought that down from 75 down to 50 just to not scare everybody to think it. But it's also a lot of times just depending on if you've got somebody helping you, or if you are being realistic, you don't have to contact maybe quite as many, but so many people, even though they'll kind of say, well, I know I can't go to these top schools, but then they'll show a list and it's still the top 50 programs in the country. And if you don't expand it enough, I mean, it's so hard. There's so few opportunities when you look at it. The transfer portal is making it really tough right now, because a lot of coaches are going into it for players as opposed to pulling in seniors. So with it all, it's just been tough. But 8th, 9th, if you're, like I said, if you're on that track, there are definitely some things you need to be doing just to stay ahead, get yourself familiar with it. 10th grade is that time period that most everybody needs to have started doing some things for sure. Now, if you're still really new to the game and you're fresh and your scores are still mostly kind of 85 and up as a sophomore, continue working more on player development. Make sure you're with a really good coach. Make sure you're playing the right tournaments. Make sure you're working really good on nutrition and strength and conditioning and those kinds of things, at that point, until you get your scores a little closer to that under 80 mark. Then if, you come up junior year and you're still not there, yeah, it's going to be looking more at kind of your lower D2, D3s at that point. If you're still more 80 and up at that point. But that sophomore year, sometimes there's still players that need to just keep focusing on their game. Once you start that process, it can definitely get stressful and get add a lot of pressure, add a lot of kind of panic to things. So sometimes if you can kind of shift that happening for some players who still maturity and mentally wise just need to keep developing their game, sometimes it's just not quite time to start yet.
Right. That's great. Well, like we mentioned at the beginning, so the next 2 webinars are really going to go deeper dives into the recruiting process. The next one all about the recruiting process itself, and then the last one focusing on parents, how you can be a positive force within that process, going a little deeper again, what coaches are looking for from you, and how when you do those visits and all those things that you're going to want to know about how you could be a positive impact on your daughter's recruiting thing. So those next 2, we have one scheduled at the end of this month and one in April. So that's going to give Brandi a couple weeks to get her voice back. So she'll be ready to go for that. So as we kind of get here to the end, I didn't want to fully bury one of the things we actually led with this when we put this out there. So let's talk about the ride home. This is a big thing that comes up when we have done surveys of your daughters. The biggest comment we get of the thing the most negative component that is brought to us when we talk to your kids about competition is the ride home. Robert, I've heard you talk about this talk before. Put into perspective not only the player's mindset, but also from a coach, what knowledge you'd like to bestow about that ride home.
Don't say anything until they ask. And if they don't ask, somehow, I know you want to, but you gotta just hang in there until they're ready to talk about it. Really, the big thing is it's hard. I mean, competitive golf, I mean, it's hard. Golf's not that hard. Competitive golf is hard. Elite competitive golf's really hard. You're gonna make mistakes. There's all pressure is basically self-imposed, but we feel it. Anybody's played this game at any kind of level, but competitive level, and Brandi could certainly talk to this. I saw Catherine was on here a while ago. She may still be, but I mean, you're playing. I mean, you feel the pressure. So let's see, how could we add more pressure? We could add pressure by every time they make a mistake, they know they're going to have to talk about that mistake and why they made that mistake. So imagine that thought process being part of what they're going through while they're playing. So just that little bit of, instead of being fully engrossed in this shot, which they've made a mistake. Now that's spiked all this chemicals, cortisol and stuff. And now they're having trouble processing. And now you're seeing something that you don't understand. Why are they doing this? And well, I mean, they're physically kind of having a tough time right now. But part of it, just that little part maybe, is like, oh man, I'm gonna have to answer about what I'm doing here, it's just more pressure. So the freedom to make mistakes is huge. And that's the learning value, really. They're all gonna make mistakes. They're all gonna fail, or whatever you put success and failure, make them in your terms, but they're all going to struggle at certain times. So, logically, what can we do to not add more pressure? There'll be times when, if they have that freedom, they make mistakes, and it's just not the end of the world. And now they're freer to talk openly about, do you think I should have made this play instead of this play? And that gives you a chance to talk. But as soon as you get in the car and you're going 16, like, what was that? What were you thinking on 16? I mean, you were right there. You're only 2 shots out of the lead. Did you know you were only 2 shots out of the lead? And how do you hit a shot that bad? And then after you hit the shot, what were you doing? So if that happens a few times, well, really once, but if it continually happens, all you do is adding pressure. And pressure is just a series of negative connotations. That's all it is, like negative thoughts. So don't add more pressure.
Good. Brandi, you want to add something on to that?
Yes, and just in case I don't come back to finish up or anything, I know you talked about the webinars that I have coming up. I know that some of the questions that we have that I will cover. So those couple of questions that we have are definitely things, but also keep in mind, anybody who's on here, you can always schedule. You do have your free 30-minute consultation. So if you want to talk about some of this stuff directly one-on-one, reach out to me as well. I'm pretty easy to find through the website and everything. So just thought about that with some of those questions that come up in case you don't want to wait until the webinar. But it's several of those about GPAs and getting started with the process and all that are definitely things that I'll cover. So just in case I don't hop back on here before we finish. But yes, you know, the ride home. Yeah, I mean, some of you, I guess, on here probably don't know my playing background. But played junior golf here in South Carolina, played collegiately at Furman, and then I played professionally for about 8 years after that. And it's definitely, there was this really funny video. It was for baseball or something, and it was about the ride home, and the guy was kind of portraying himself in the dad and how it was as a kid, and you know, you hated the ride home, and it was all of this, and then he gets to college, and it's a little bit more maturity of understanding that, God, I guess my dad was right. And I can remember for me, when I got out on tour, I mean, one of the first things I wanted to do was to call my dad and talk to him. And he, you know, he kind of knew, and he was always waiting. Obviously, he'd see the live scoring. So definitely as parents, you got to trust that will change over time. I mean, that it is amazing. It's just like Robert said. I mean, the difference in that competitive mindset and the nerves and the pressure. I remember my dad used to ask me, you know, was I really nervous and all of this? And most of the time you're not going to admit it. You feel like that there's something wrong if you do, but I promise you, like, the thoughts that are going through your head when you're out there on the golf course during that time, it's scary, some of what it might be. And, you know, I get a lot of dads or moms, well, she shoots this during practice rounds and plays so well. And I mean, it's just not even remotely the same. And if you know, have never really been in that, it is so hard to describe what it's like to, you know, to be in those positions and to have that, you know, that nervousness. There's so much that's going on through your head that, I mean, it's just not competitive tournament rounds and practice rounds. Even if you're keeping score, even if there's something on it, it's just not the same. And again, especially when you're looking at these, you know, 14, 15, 16-year-old, you know, girls who emotionally, maturity wise, it's just not there. I mean, you can't just create that and force that, you know, to be there as, at that age. They're just still in this, their brain, everything is still developing. So, you know, you just got to keep all that in mind and try to keep that talk as positive as you can. I'm big on, as you know, the parents out there, the two biggest things to kind of always feel a little bit more free to be maybe a little bit more, not negative, but harp on, is attitude and effort. Not so much the results, not their scores, not some of all of that, but how has their attitude and effort been as far as their practice up to that point, their attitude on the golf course. Those I feel like are always things that you can be a little bit more demanding of, with the results and the scores and all of that, and doing it right immediately as soon as you get off. I'm telling you, we're beating ourselves up. We're mad at that, you know, how we hit that shot. We just, you know, there is a time and a place to discuss it. Some have great relationships with their coaches. I get it as parents, like, you know, it's a different sport than team sports where you've got a coach there who's sitting there seeing it all. And as a parent, I know sometimes you want to be able to kind of help relay that information to the swing coach or help your daughter understand. And that's 100% understandable because, again, they're immature. They don't understand why they did what they did, but just try not to do it when they're already emotional. Give them their space, talk about something else, praise them for something they did, and then have a time. Sometimes it even just takes having a time where you say, all right, you know, we're going to, you know, give it 15 minutes, or we're going to talk about this tomorrow, and just let her kind of dictate it. But, you know, I definitely see the importance of kind of going over it and identifying some of the things to work on, some of the things that you need to improve on. But just harping on it or beating them up about it, you know, is just definitely not the time when emotions are already high. But do trust, you know, that as the years go on, I know it's tough being the parents, or I don't know because I'm not a kid, but I know when I see how it was with my parents that it is tough to be the parent and, you know, feel kind of helpless and want that, you know, want to be a part of it. But I will 100% say, like I said, it does get better as time goes on and they start to kind of come to you for it instead of resisting it so much. So.
Yeah, I would also say that from a parent perspective, you know, obviously you want to help them with the things that the mistakes, but here's a couple of things that make it worse. When you tell them that it's all mental, or if you tell them that they just have to trust and believe in themselves, you there's science. I'm just not making this up, but basically the principle would be like a reverse psychology thing. But unless they believe something, you telling them something like that just makes it worse. Like, well, then obviously I'm a failure because I don't. So that part of the process just has to develop also. And there is a time and place to discuss things, and they want your input and they respect you like crazy. But the car ride home, not the greatest time.
Great. Well, I think that the piece that I would add, and from the tournament operator side, the tour operator side, when I'm talking to families and you're calling in and you're asking questions, I am very sympathetic to and we have a lot of empathy for you parents that are out there watching. We understand how tough it is to stand over there on the sidelines, be able to do absolutely nothing to help the person you care that much about and them as whether it's great or struggle, the highs, the lows. Like, I get it. We get it. We understand it's tough. And, we have guidelines, we have rules, we have to enforce them to make sure we stay within them. And, I hope when you call, like, I want to help your child the best I can. And sometimes I'm telling you what you don't want to hear or not the answer that you want, whether getting into certain tournaments or whatever it may be. But please understand, we get it. That's why this tour was created, was to provide this place for players to try to reach their goals. And that's why this is a nonprofit tour for that reason. That's what we're committed to. It's what we want. And we'll keep doing, we're motivated to keep doing everything we can to kind of support, you, the family, because we understand it is the family. It's everybody's involved. All three of us were college athletes and grew up in families that were built around, their children's getting to their goals. So I think we understand where you are, and we're going to do our best to help. So I appreciate everybody coming and being a part of this webinar. We'll definitely keep looking to doing more of these. Of course, we already have 2 scheduled in the recruiting process. If you have any ideas, you have questions or things a topic you'd like us to cover in a future webinar, please shoot me an email. As well as if you ever have questions about your daughter, you're unsure about a future tournament, whether it's the right fit or where she is in the classification system, where she is, please reach out. I would be glad to help. That call, as Brandi mentioned, that 30-minute free consultation that you get with her as part of your membership, please take advantage of that. It always helps to bounce these ideas you have, what you heard from that other family in the group you played in that one day. Was that good advice? Okay, Brandi's a great person to ask. She's a neutral arbiter of all of this. She can tell you a lot of good information to help you answer those questions, to give you more, that extra strength, that extra confidence that you're on the right path and that you're doing the right things. Take advantage of that. Please do. But Robert, I really appreciate your time tonight and joining us. And of course, Brandi, for all the support over these years with the RecruitPKB initiative. So thank you all so much for being here. Yes, we should have this recorded. Yes. So we'll have it out as far as a replay. But thank you so much for being here. I hope everybody has a great week, and we'll see a lot of you at Findlay this weekend.
Yes, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.